Have you ever felt just kind of stuck and you're not sure why you can't move forward? Well, my guest expert today is talking about whether this could be entities, energies, or just feeling like you're out of alignment. So many spiritual and ambitious souls are wondering what in the heck is going on right now in the world and their energy. And you might feel like you've got some forward momentum, but then you're taking two steps back and you can feel like, wait a minute. Last week, I was feeling like I could just really move forward really quickly, but now I feel kind of held back. She's going to walk you through a step-by-step process of really determining if you're in alignment or not, and keys to shift into your soul alignment. Our guest today is going to talk about energy alignment and alignment in your business. So stay tuned. Welcome to Spiritual and Ambitious. I'm your host, Whitney McNeil. I'm a certified medium and spiritual teacher, and I help spiritual and ambitious souls just like you live your life purpose through your career and attract abundance by connecting into your intuition and spirit guides. Let's get spiritual and ambitious. Welcome to another episode of the Spiritual and Ambitious podcast. And I have something so exciting to talk about today with our guest, Emily Ahrens. We're going to be talking about what in the heck is going on right now with our soul alignment, with our business alignment. And we're also going to be giving you some insights as to how to shift into more of that right next step for you. Emily and I were just talking about this, so she's going to share her wisdom. And Emily is the most sought after intuitive healer for female CEOs. She's best known for getting her clients out of overwhelm and burnout, sound familiar, and unlocking the wisdom within to create business and soul alignment. For over 2 decades, Emily has been practicing healing work directly with powerful visionaries and teaching them how to tap into their intuition to activate quantum growth in their business. So welcome to the podcast, Emily. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me, Whitney.
I'm so happy. We got connected, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, something like that. Yeah. Yeah. Spirit just organizes it in a way. And so finally it was like, wait a minute, we need to really talk. And I love it when our energies kind of combine and come together. I feel like when we open up to connect with one another and receive support, so many ahas and more intuitive hits kind of happen. So I'm glad that you're here today. And we've been talking about some of the weird kind of energy going on right now. So let's just kind of chat about that first before we kind of dive in. And I actually drew a card from the Messenger of Spirit Oracle today, and it is the butterfly break through your limit. So I think that's really some great messages coming through.
Thank you. Spirit dope slap, right to start the day. All right.
Exactly. So can you tell me a little bit about what you've been seeing going on with your clients, with your community, and any kind of personal things as well, energetically?
Yes, for sure. So we kind of talked about this before recording, which is this year has kind of felt like the Wild West. And normally myself, and I haven't been working as closely with clients in this year in a coaching capacity as I have in years past, because I stopped doing my coaching program at the end of 2021. So this year was truly like clear the slate and just allow myself to be divinely guided. And so what I'm noticing in myself and with some of the clients I'm working with is we're opening up to this like new level. For me, it looks like I'm birthing a new certification. And that came like a direct download right after COVID happened with me in January. And it was like one morning I woke up and it was like all the information immediately. And I was like, told my husband, I'm like, you're going to need to leave with the kids for a few hours because I need to get this out of me. Okay. And I wrote it all down. I'm like, okay, I got this. This sounds pretty great. Like the plan all feels good. When I started to actually create it in June and July, it was like all these energies like working almost against me, this self-doubt, this worry. And I swear I would have given up if I didn't have people who were in the program, like waiting to get modules every single week. So I'm really glad that I pre-sold it before I created it in that way. because it really held me accountable. And so what I'm noticing, and actually even just yesterday and this morning, I was working a bit in my Akashic records and clearing some heavy energies off of me, entities, like these heavy, I don't know, dark energies, like just kind of like in my field. And I mean, I kind of lost track of how many times I needed to clear and release them and to come back into my own sovereign energy, to recall my energy, to no longer give permission or access to my energy. And interestingly enough, when I was teaching about that in my course, weird stuff was happening to technology. So specifically, when I was writing my notes about entities, I use a Google Doc and all of my tabs are open. I'm listening to music on an online platform. And the only tab that's doing the little circle icon is the one where my notes are. And so I'm like, okay, this is very isolated. All the other browser tabs, which I obviously have 5 of 6 open at the same time, that's the only one that's being affected. And so I'm noticing it's like there's these energies. And I think part of the issue that I'm seeing personally is that we're being called to do our soul work right now. And so there might be forces that are just like, I'd like to keep the consciousness low on the planet right now, so please don't do your work. And they're not saying it that nicely, by the way. But truly, it's like you're opening up in this new level. And on a soul level, like your soul is so expanded. It's like a hell yes in your body. Your energy is like, boom, the information is dropping in fast. And then all of a sudden, it's like this dark cloud rolls in. Yeah. And I feel like that's personally what I have been up against in the last like quarter, personally.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing people absorbing the news and stories of like, what is the economy doing? What is happening in health? What is happening globally? And this like pulling in restriction and tightening. It's not that people aren't buying, but their buying patterns are changing. And so there might be people who have worked with you in the past who are like, yes, please, I'd like to go deeper. I want more of you. There might be people who are new in the world who are like, who are you? What do you do for me? That might not be ready to take bigger steps. Like in the past, especially 2020, people were just like totally getting into like buying stuff and courses online, and they could drop a couple $1,000s on some random person they just happened to see an ad from. And I'm seeing that kind of shifting as well. And I'm also hearing from the industry, from other really big leaders in the online industry, like those buying patterns are shifting and changing as well. I'm also seeing some big leaders throwing spaghetti right now. So it's really interesting.
I have also. So that's so interesting because we're noticing some shifts and some changes, right? And it is kind of this place of there's this pivoting. But I want to go back to that source point of what you're talking about with energies and entities. I've also felt very kind of like heavy when I noticed that this started to happen more so in September for me, which is so interesting. And I felt pretty darn great like over the summer. And then all of a sudden I felt like this, like you said, this dark cloud rolled in. So I do feel like there's so much out there, and, we could call it whatever. You could say the light and the shadow or whoever, whatever you want to call it. But what's been interesting is kind of feeling like it takes more energy to hold my aura, or it takes more energy to shine my light a bit more. So let's talk about what you feel entities are. I think that's going to be something that so many people listening do want to kind of know more about.
Yeah. So what initially I go to is like the image I put on my slides, which is like a funny cartoon Canva image of like a Halloween character with like a single eyeball,
I like that. That makes it kind of like comical in a way.
Yeah. And that's kind of where I wanted to come from, of like, let's not like, they're not like meanie bad guys, but there is an energy that is not helpful to us. Yeah. And so I don't even know if I would go as far as to say good or bad. It's just an energy that can be in our field, whether it be our auric field. It could, so what are entities? Let me back up. This is how it happens, right? So what I consider entities are any unwanted or unwelcome energy in your field. And it doesn't have to have a name or a shape or anything like that. All we need to know is it yours? Is it in your highest and best interest? And if it's not, let's transmute it. And so I've actually worked with another healer recently, and she has taught me around, you can invite it to either go to the astral plane or to go to the void. This is not work that I've been personally trained on doing, but when I invite them to either go to the astral plane or go to the void, they choose and then they transmute really quickly. And this isn't me teaching like a modality of energy work at all. So like you can learn more if you're really interested, I would say. But I think it's really interesting that as I open up further and as I'm here to raise consciousness, and especially September as well. Now, also, this is parallel to me opening up now. Okay, I'll back up. In June, I got a download for doing a challenge in September. It was very specific. You did too.
Yeah, I did. It was just a different month. Yeah.
Okay.
I did. It was so clear. I woke up from, it was a dream and I was like, oh, I've got to write it on my phone. But since then, that plan has changed. So keep going.
Yes. Yes. Well, I've wanted to change the plan, believe me. So it was really clear. It's going to be September. It's going to be 30 days to raise people's consciousness, help them open up intuitively. And really, it's a challenge to do 5 daily habits, which is drink water, eat great, whole foods, meditation, move your body and get outside in nature. Like nothing crazy, but just to raise the level of consciousness. Because if you're doing all those 5 things, you start to get really intuitive and you start to get in sync with your body and you start to open up more. And you'll see synchronicities, you'll see animal messages. Like there's so much that happens. So doing this in September, it's like, oh, wow, I am having to work harder to raise my vibration. I'm having to work harder. So I'm doing this challenge and I'm making the certification simultaneously. And so it's a lot of big energy that I'm like, whoa, like just degunking myself every single day to get to the place where I can serve at my highest level. And so when I can actually get into the vibration and create my work, my coursework, I get into that zone. And then I usually have a very short work day. So I have to do it again the next day. And it's a lot. And what I realized is I was having a lot of personal self-doubts, and I've been doing energy healing for 23 years. Like I've been doing it longer, like more than half of my life. And that's only professionally. I've been learning about this like woo-woo spiritual world since I was a teenager. And actually, if I'm really being honest, I was like probably 7 or 8 when I first started getting into spirituality. So like, it's a lifelong journey at this point. And when I started to create certain modules, I was noticing like self-doubt. I'm like, how could I possibly teach about this one thing for any length of time to be anything good for something? The next thing I know, I've been talking for 25 minutes on this one thing. And I'm like, well, I guess I do know a couple things, And so, I'd have to do this every single week. And now I'm seeing my practitioners in the student clinic and they are unbelievable. And I'm like, how could I possibly keep doubting myself when I see the evidence so clear in front of me and their testimonials are rolling in week after week? And it's like, they are just starting. Like, how are they this good? And they're just starting. Oh, well, they're learning from me. Got it. So maybe I can own that.
Yes.
So, maybe. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting things that are happening right now. And I think that's why it's important that we can tap into our own cycles and, like you said, like shift and pivot the timing and open up for what's the highest and best divine plan for me that's going to be in the highest and best interest for all of my community. I think it's like a constant recalibration, it seems like.
Definitely. I feel that recalibration, and it's like a pivot, a realignment, which is really interesting. Whenever I would teach, I used to teach Reiki classes, and whenever I would teach, I realized that I too would go through some sort of detox where I would kind of be challenged to shift into my next level to raise my vibration. And so I would have some doubt or some ego lessons or things like that. And it's kind of like, we are just making sure we've gotten the message as we teach what we're teaching. And I think that does take, oh my gosh, so much energy. Mm-hmm. And I received a download back in June. It was clear as day. I told my whole team, this is what we're doing. And then it just shifted, right? So when you do tap into your intuition and that vibe, you can say, okay, this is a great idea, but I'm going to change the timing of it. It doesn't feel currently aligned.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is one of the ways that we can shift more into that alignment, which I know we're going to talk about here today too. But I wanted to ask you, because you were saying you started like around 7 or 8. So how did you get interested in all this? Were you really just kind of born with this desire to find out more? Did an event happen? What led you onto this path?
Well, I know so I have my kindergarten journal at my house first, it's so crazy, right? And in my kindergarten journal, I wrote that I wanted to, or the teacher, I dictated, the teacher wrote it in her handwriting. I wanted to be a doctor so I could help people. Okay. So I knew at a very young age that I wanted to help people. Like I came in knowing I had a mission. I knew in high school, I wanted to be a business owner. I knew I was going to have my own business. I knew I was going to be a practitioner. I knew I was going to be a healer from around 8 because we had a woman who did Reiki and massage that rented a room in my house at that time. That was my first introduction to somebody I personally knew. Now, I went to massage and energy healing school at 18, right after high school, without having ever had any of those sessions before. I just was like, I'm here for the thing. And I never received it before. I just knew. And that was also the time where I was like, oh, these are my people, because I always felt a little bit like an outsider, an outcast. Now, I didn't at all understand my psychic abilities until way, way, way later. I was in my early 30s at that point. So I've been an energy practitioner since 2000. And so I had been fully in my psychic intuitive closet for a very long time, like a decade and a half. And I was receiving a polarity session. I was on the table and I heard my guide say as clear as day, light workers be the light. And to me, that was like that card you just drew, like the angel dope slap. It was like the spirit dope slap, like, listen, sister, you're here to do something. So you're doing the world a service. If you keep not doing it, you got to get out there and do the damn thing. But they said it, light workers be the light. That's what I interpreted as. And I was like, shoot, I need to do something with this. And so I had previously been taught by my, energy healing teachers, like how to have a business, which really they didn't know how to have a business. And I went to college. So I had a degree in business and public relations. So I kind of knew that. And I was always kind of skating between, like, I have a business and I know what I'm doing. And I'm this high vibe energy light worker. And so I've always been this little unicorn that I know a lot about business and strategy in the left brain and a ton about the right brain. And so that's where I've kind of found my little career here in the middle, where I don't know a lot of other, energy folks who do talk business the way that I do. And specifically with this certification, and literally just in the last couple of days, because I've been doing so much work on myself, is I'm realizing that I'm here not only to shift this paradigm out of broke healers, but I also need to really specifically talk to healers and talk to coaches. And I've never really done that before. I've talked to the female CEOs, the female entrepreneurs, but now I'm like getting like so down and specific. And so that's great, but it also brings up my stuff. Like it just totally, it triggers me. And it's like, oh my gosh, who are you to do this? And then, oh, like all these broke healers, they were broke just like you. And, so developing my gifts from a young age, I took intuition classes. And then I eventually started to use my intuition more as a career path. And when I came out, essentially out of my spiritual closet, I came out online and I was told by spirit, like, now you have to announce this. And they gave me instructions. And then I started to do like card pulls online, which I'd never done. And then I got the message of my guides. They're just like, oh, that's so cute. Put the cards down. Okay. And so it was like, okay, I put the cards down. Now I'm just like full on channeling for random people that are just like messaging me on a Facebook Live that I have no idea who they are. And like, I always had these fears around being visible, and all my clients who had known me for the last decade and a half, just all leaving and abandoning me because I was this like weird psychic person. But all the time, whenever they came in to see me for a back rub, the second like I put my hands on them, I had this like full video view of like their life story, and like the pain says it's here, but this is actually where it is. And here's the things that you need to do. And here's some spirit guides who are going to just like come in and help you work on them. But I kept it completely silent. Like I would never talk about these things. I'm just like, they're going to think I'm a total weirdo. So I'm not going to say any of that stuff.
So what kind of forced you into finally saying the stuff?
Oh, my guides are basically just like strong handing me like, you need to do this. Enough of this like playing games thing. And so that's when I started to get visible. The year that I started to get visible and share my gifts, I 10x'd my business. Like literally. And I know I say this a lot, and it sounds so like cliche, but it's like as soon as I started to tap into my intuition, just listen to it implicitly, it was like the lights just turned on suddenly in my business.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And it's like, the thing I look at it was like, well, what's the alternative? Because I'm making like 12 grand a year at this point. Like I can't get much worse than that. And so I figured like, well, what do I have to lose? So I'll just start listening to my intuition. I'll start sharing these messages, and I'll just do what the voices in my head tell me to do. And I'll start making offers based on what I receive from my higher self and spirit, and see how that goes. And I'll price myself like that, and I'll increase my prices and so on. And so it kind of like built itself.
Yeah.
And then I think really people were like, well, how did you do that? So that's when I started to teach people. So yeah.
I love this. One of the stories I'll share too, I went to business school, and I graduated with a bachelor's of science in business administration with marketing. And I just went down this path where when I was in college, my major was actually going to be to do medicine. Like I was down that path.
Gotcha.
And then I got to organic chemistry. I was like, can't do it. So I went into marketing, but I always knew I wanted to help people in that same way.
Yeah.
But anyway, fast forward, it was like when I finally said, Whitney, stop worrying about what people think of you and just create your business and put it out online. Yeah. And when Spirit told me to go full time, literally overnight, it was as if my business just completely grew and I had a full-time client base. So it's so nice because you're saying the same thing in your journey. So with everyone listening right now, this is a great validation. You've heard my story, but now you're hearing Emily's story. It's not just a random thing. Like you've got to listen to your intuition, which is so important. So we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, Emily's going to give us some tips to know really how to get back into alignment and what some of the biggest things we need to know right now are.
As a professional psychic medium, I've done tens of thousands of readings, but I felt a call to move more fully into teaching intuition. But I still get so many requests about doing readings. So while I don't do readings anymore, I have brought in some very trusted colleagues who are now available for live 1-hour readings on Zoom. If you would like to book your psychic medium reading, go to messengerofspirit.com/appointments to see our available readers and schedule your Zoom reading today.
All right. Thanks for hanging out with us. I've got Emily Ahrens here on the podcast, and we're talking about some resistance going on right now, some energy that feels a little bit heavy and how to kind of break through it. One of the tips that's worked really well for me is working with your protector guide and your doorkeeper. So if you're one of my students, you know that I talk about calling in that helpful guide to help clear that. But sometimes we just need to do some extra clearing. It's just what it is. It's like we get dust in our house when we clean it, but you know what? Next week, there's going to be some more dust that we need to clear out. So we're talking about alignment and how to shift back into it. So Emily, could you give us some tips to either clear some of those energy or how we can shift back into finding more of that alignment with who we are in our soul and our spirit?
Yeah, for sure. And I love what you said about the dust. I always look at ascension like a staircase. And, you're on the bottom step and you sweep the step and you don't look at the stairwell like, oh, I swept the bottom step. Everything is clean now. You have to go up the step and sweep from every single step. So, even like I mentioned, like the broke healer stuff, like I swept it at the first step. Now I'm on level 10. We got to sweep the stairs again. So the first thing is to identify what is alignment and what is not alignment. So alignment is ease, joy, bliss, expansion, light, all of those like yummy, yummy feelings. And you can visualize this alignment. This is the way my guides show me, I got a lot of metaphors going. So we'll never lack visual or metaphors. It's kind of like if you were in this like cozy inner tube on a slow, lazy river. You're just kind of floating downstream and you're just like loving it. It's sunny, you're relaxed, and you're just going where the river is taking you. And so that is a visual representation of what alignment might feel like when you're out of alignment. And so also, like I mentioned, light-hearted, expanded. So that's also a body feel. So when your body feels in alignment, you feel that lightheartedness, that expansion, you feel buoyant. When you're out of alignment, the opposite is also true. So you feel tightness, constriction, worry, anxiety, gossip, overthinking, overwhelm, like there's so much to do and not enough time, like that feeling. And that visual, instead of being in like the cool, lazy river, now you're standing in the river trying to push it. So the river is moving one direction and you're standing there going, not that way. And you're holding on to your inner tube at the same time. Okay, it's hard. Working hard is part of being out of alignment. And sometimes we think as entrepreneurs that you really do need to clock in some serious hours. You got to work hard to make money. And those are simple money blocks. So it's like a simple belief that we've been ingrained over millennia. I mean, it's been baked right into our DNA. So part of our growth and ascension, that process of understanding what is alignment and ease and expanded feeling in my body, or what is that tight, constricted feeling in my body. And usually your body's going to give you that signal like that. It's going to alert you. You're going to feel it. You're going to know it. And even just listening to this right now, I'm guessing that there are probably some places in your physical body that are lighting up and activated. So I always suggest just closing your eyes and tuning into your physical body. Your body isn't going to lie, which is why I mentioned earlier, this is why we eat, whole foods. This is why we move our body. This is why we drink water. We want to become a clear channel so that any little subtle messages that are coming in, you're going to get that hit right away without having to like, I don't know. Was that a thing? I don't know. So when you can feel your body right now, just close your eyes. So this is a tip, I suppose. Close your eyes. And if you feel into your body, am I in my highest alignment right now? And it's a yes or a no. Okay, so if there's any places in my body where I have any stuck, stagnant, still energy, anything that's blocking me, and you're going to immediately, intuitively, like, you're going to zero in on it like this, okay? I don't need to cue you. Your head, your throat, your chest, your belly, your legs, like you already know it. Like you've known it now, okay? And as I'm talking over you, you know it. So in that place, then you can start to get really more specific in that exact spot. Is there anything that I can do? Anything I need to start doing or stop doing to get into alignment? I want you to ask those questions individually. I want you just to get curious and inquisitive. Like if you saw like, I don't know, I'm seeing like a puppy or like a little kid like at your doorstep, you wouldn't be like, what the hell are you doing here? Why go home? Like, oh, what's going on? Did you want some help? And you'd be so nice and friendly. Okay. So in that place in your body, start to just get inquisitive. So what is it that it's trying to tell me right now? Is there a place in my body that it needs a little bit more freedom, that could get some that is ready for a shift to get back into alignment? What do I need to start doing to get that into my highest alignment? And you can start asking these questions into your body. I mean, it will take you down a trail of thoughts and a trail of questions until you get into your highest vibration, your highest alignment. And ultimately, I would suggest doing this working with your highest self so that you're in like a nice, clear vibration in your space. Clear your space first and really open up to, what is my body trying to tell me right now? So simple things that you can do, like if you're in the middle of your work day and something is feeling a little tight and constricted and off, you might just take a note of it and go, you know what, I'm going to sit with this a little bit later, maybe meditate on it and open up to spirit to see if there's any other messages here for me. So like the example that Whitney gave is like, you knew the download was the download, but there was something about it that was like, not quite a fit right now. So when you first get that hit, personally, like for you, does it feel like tightness and constriction in your body or just like a knowing, or like, how did you get it?
For me, so I'm primarily a seer where I'll see things. And then my secondary intuitive language is a deep knowing. So it kind of comes both where it's like, oh, I see it. They gave me like the picture of what it looks like in the videos that it was going to create. And then it was like, write it down, so then it's like, I will get my phone and do the writing. So that's how it comes in for me. Yeah.
Okay. And like when you need to make a shift or a pivot, when you know something's off, like you said, you had the download, you told your whole team, and then you have to change something. How do you perceive those?
I get that in my body. So for me, I talk about the 4 intuitive languages in my program. So I talk about the channeler being either a knowing or your body responding. So for me, it was so funny because for like 3 days, I just couldn't like make myself do things. And I was just in bed. I was so tired. And then it took me talking to a friend where she's like, I think there's some energy there. I was like, oh, duh, Whitney, like you teach this. And you are being in resistance because it's not the right next step for you right now. And it kind of was at this place where I felt so silly. Like, I teach this all the time. What in the world? Like, I didn't even know it was for me. So sometimes it takes a little while.
Yeah, it's fine. We get it at our own pace.
Exactly. It was like, of course, yes, this is not the right step. So it's like my body just couldn't do it. And I've felt that way. Like even with hiking, I just cannot make my feet move to the trail. And the same with a path. If it's metaphorically, I just can't move forward with it. There's something that just doesn't feel right for me.
Yeah. And you know what that reminds me too, is like when I first started using my intuition to guide my offers and the timing of offers, I didn't quite get the memo that spirit is like in no time. And so when I would get this urge of like, now is the time to do it. You do it right now. I'd be like, but I have a thing that I'm doing. And okay, like I would just like do it all now. And then I finally, one of my friends is like, so like, just like so obvious. So like, you can say you'll do it, but just like in the time that you can do it. I'm like, oh, right.
Yeah, right. Like, it's because I think spirit has no concept of time, right? We have this linear time. Spirit, there's really no time. So I feel the same way. Sometimes you get all this burst of energy to do it, but you have to work with your guides to co-create that aligned next step of whatever it is. So funny.
Yeah, it is funny. And I have somebody who works on my podcast who she does copywriting. She has her own business as well. And she was asking me just like a personal question recently around when you get that strong hit, you follow it. And she's like, I felt like 12 people were in my program, but then nobody bought my program. Like, what happened? And I would love to hear your take on it. What I had said to her was really in questioning my spirit team, because I've been led to do things like that in the past as well. And not everything pans out to be like a knockout. And so when I've asked my team of like, why did you have me just ask 20 people to join my program if none of them were going to join? And my guides are like, so that you would. I'm like, bull.
Yes.
I thought you were gonna say so. I thought you had me go asking them because all of them were gonna buy my thing.
Exactly.
What the heck?
Yeah, I feel the same way. So we have two answers. We've had this where I was chatting with Spirit. This was several years ago. My husband was kind of wanting to know if he was going to get this client. And the answer is yes. But we didn't really ask the right question on the timing. Like, when was this going to happen? So he didn't get the client. And, we're kind of like, what the fuck, Spirit? Like, like, what is going on? And basically the message was, you'll still get the client. It's just not right now. And 3 years later, he got that client and still has that client. So it's more of a, we need to ask better questions.
Yes.
But then another situation is the same. I felt this overwhelming push to join the speaker program. I was like, okay, like this is totally from Spirit, signed up, and felt like this urge to pitch myself to do a speaking gig. And I didn't get it. And I wasn't very attached to it, but I was like, well, I'm just doing what you told me to do. And out of the blue, air quotes here, this other speaking invitation came in that was not even related to what I was doing. And of course, I was like, yes, it was definitely a hell yes. So we wanted to make sure that you were serious and you were open and you were ready for when we create the opportunity for you. So sometimes it's more of we just wanted to push your limits. We wanted you to, get to the next level. we want you to really break out of any insecurities that you have so that you can then be in a better place to receive when the time is right or whatever it is. So That's so interesting.
It is. And this is what I was saying to her too, is like what her challenge was really to just trust it. Instead of like everything needed to be like fact checked, just exactly what you said is like, well, we could ask better questions. And sometimes it's that we don't have the whole story given to us right then. And it doesn't mean it's not right, but it's opening us up for something else. And so doing this work enough, I think I could probably speak for you, is like, like there's a much bigger picture here that like we might not be privy to. And it's only in looking back that all the little pieces make sense and they click on the path like, oh, that went to that, then that, I get it. But in the moment, we don't necessarily have all the information that we can connect the dots like that. And so it can be harder to trust. And I think that's why people distrust their intuition, because they're like, well, I don't know, I'm here and this isn't looking right. Well, if I was like, Whitney, come over today, and you just put my address in your GPS, like you would probably have some rerouting. Like it wouldn't necessarily be a straight road from point A to point B. There might be some turnaround. And so I feel like that's what we have to take into account and be okay with. And that's where the trust is like, I know I'm always going to be redirected to the right path. There's not a wrong path. I'm never off my path. I'm on the path, but I'm learning some lessons as I go. And like, this is all part of the fun game, isn't it?
Exactly. Sometimes I laugh. I'm like, my spirit before I incarnated must have set up all these little things like, it's going to be so much fun. And then sometimes I'll be like, why did I think this was a fun game? Like, why did I decide to do it this time around?
I have asked myself that. I've actually said, somebody read my Akashic records and they're like, so I've never seen a soul like yours before. I would be surprised if you came back again. I'm like, I'm with you. I'm 100% on that trajectory. Like, why are we doing this? But you said something I wrote down. You said it was like a hell yes. And so I think that's another really good distinction of how to tell if you're in alignment or not. And the way we get practiced at that is knowing what is a hell yes and in our body for sure, and what is a hell no. Because a lot of times you might say, yeah, no. Like even yeah, no, like sometimes even culturally, like we just like say it like in our family, like, yeah, we always say yeah, no. Well, yeah, no is not a yes and it's not a no. And so your body doesn't even know what that means. And your energy doesn't really know what to do with that either. And so when we know what a yes is, it can be this full body experience, explosion of a yes. And if it's not that, then that's a no. So that's like an easy way to distinguish like what is a hell yes and what is not. even when and like, this is what you have to, it's not just with the big decisions, it's with every decision. Like, do I have pasta tonight? Okay. It's a yes or no. Do I walk my dog to the right or to my left? Okay. Like, it's stupid stuff that is like totally inconsequential, that when you start to use that instinct, it gets so strong. And so when someone's like, hey, do you want to hang out tomorrow night for lunch? And you're like, or for dinner, you're like, well, my schedule is free. I should, right? I should hang out with that person. I want to see them, but like everything in my body's like, no.
Exactly. That's so relatable, especially to me right now. Like, I totally get it. And I can't give the person a reason, and it's not like I have to, but it's just like, it's a no.
Right. Yeah. And then like sometimes, even if you go against your better intuitive judgment and you say yes, even though everything in you is a no, like something may just happen to take your plans away from the night. Like you might happen to just like manifest a little cold, or you might happen to just have to go do something else. Like this happened to my husband just this week, where we have a backyard farm, we have animals. There is this organization for special education that we've brought our goats to do this this event called Trick or Trunk. We bring our goats and it's fun. Well, we happen to get a wedding invitation. That's the same day. You can't even make this stuff up. And so we really had to go, well, if we left early, and she's like, yeah, gates are locked. You can't leave until 4:30. The wedding's at 4:30. It was like, let me see if I can get somebody else to do it. They couldn't do it. We're like, well, we have to just say no. So like sometimes the universe really conspires to help you with those answers. If you feel like, oh, I have to justify why I have to say no. It's like, just say no.
Yes. It happens a lot too with appointments. Sometimes I might overbook myself, or it doesn't look like I've overbooked myself that day, but I just energetically, something comes up that I'd rather work on. Mm-hmm. And I am one of those where I don't want to seem flaky. So I'll basically keep that appointment unless there's this huge reason, because I want to honor a commitment. But Spirit just, I'll get an email from them. Oh, I'm sorry, I can't do this appointment. And I'm like celebrating, like, oh, yay.
I love it when that happens. You're like, and they feel so bad. Like, no, I understand. It's really, I will waive my cancellation fee. Like, it'll be okay. I love that too. I'm the same way, where if it's not, and you say don't want to seem flaky, I go to, I don't want to let them down. So like, we have our own like reasons for not wanting to cancel. But, I've also learned that I can only really serve my clients at my highest level when I am like fully present and there. And if that day my energy wants to be somewhere else, it's not usually last minute like that, truly. But even if it's a podcast interview or something else, if it's really not feeling light for me, I'll just reach out and say, you know what, I'll need to reschedule this. And then it frees me up in a lot of ways. Yeah.
Yeah. When I used to do client work, I would feel in that way. So if you're listening out there and you're seeing clients, I would look at it as the same way you just said. I cannot serve my highest and the best. So I used to do readings, and I don't do one-on-ones anymore. But I felt like, if I'm feeling this way, I know that I'm going to block some messages, or I can't be the clearest channel. So that's something, if you're out there and you're feeling bad, knowing, wait a minute, you're doing your client a service by rescheduling or canceling if you're really not feeling in that place.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because like with my clients, it was no problem, but with other situations, it's like still an issue. So it sounds like that's something I need to work on. It's like, oh yeah, thanks Emily for bringing that back up. Oh yes, that's some work I need to do. I appreciate that.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
But I also have had clients who say, thank you. I really appreciate it. I want you to be at your best. So like,
yeah, totally. Yeah. Usually when I said that, they were like, I totally understand. Cause I didn't want to, deliver some half-ass crappy service or, reading. I wanted it to be my highest and best. So thank you for sharing some tips for shifting into alignment. I think we talked about some of the blocks. Are there some common blocks that you see from your community that maybe you kind of feel called from Spirit to just talk about right now? I mean, you and I have kind of touched on it, but are there any messages that you might want to share with where people could invite themselves to look into?
Yeah. And what's kind of coming up right now is the shadow side, which is consciously, I work with people who want to make an impact and make money. And while they might say they want to, let's say, bring in another $1,000 a week, when it comes down to it and push comes to shove, like, okay, so how are you making $1,000 a week? They don't create a plan, or if they create a plan, they don't change it last minute because it's not in alignment like the way that you did. They're like almost avoiding grounding the plan, or making a plan and grounding it into like actual tangible dates, or creating a link, or doing these like minute things that are actually getting them to the goal of selling the thing. Or they make excuses like, oh, well, I don't have this and I don't have that platform. And something that I see with people is like, one thing I really like to do is kind of a tricky thing I do is, some of my higher end offers. So I do occasionally still work with people one-on-one. And I recently did some VIP days, and I purposely made a VIP day link like extra long and without a sales page or any kind of website or anything whatsoever. So basically, if they were the right person, I would send them this very long checkout link and they would buy, and it was like $5,000. And then we'd get into our session. And so when they would say things like, well, I don't have, my website's not done. And I would say, well, you invested in me and there was no website. It's not that I'm throwing it back at them like nanny, but it's also evidence to say you're focusing too much on perfectionism, and it's making an excuse for you not to bring in actual revenue. And so one of the things that like Spirit showed me in one of those sessions was really great. It was like a Play-Doh fun factory. And so they're like, how do you make money? This is how. And so they're like, okay, you squeeze the Play-Doh up in your hand and you open the Play-Doh fun factory lever. And I have like young kids, so this is very relevant for me. You push the Play-Doh into the machine and you crank it down, and out comes the spaghetti noodles. So how you make money is you make it. So noodles. Like, I know it's so stupid, right?
I like that. I love that. Noodles.
Like the noodles don't just like appear out of thin air. You have to create the effort and energy and create those noodles. And so it's like just hoping and having the intention and wanting to manifest noodles is not actually producing noodles. And so how many times do we look at our schedule or our workload and go like, where is everybody? Well, go get them. Go get them. And so I think that's something that I guess wanted to come up is creating that.
Yeah. I mean, because we can set our intentions all day long, but you have to co-create. You're here, your body's a vessel to help ground your purpose. And that means you have to take inspired action. We can get the messages all day long, but we have to also do some inner work to find why aren't we doing these things? And it can be a fear of visibility, fear of charging for my spiritual services, and, really just looking in for that. So that's a great message for everybody. Like, do the thing. Stop making excuses. Put yourself out there and your energy.
Yeah.
So I feel like I know how spiritual and ambitious really moves into your business, but I just love to ask all my guests, how does spiritual and ambitious look for you and in your business? I know how, but I want to hear from you.
I think they're one and the same. And I don't see myself as separate from my business. And so the spiritual growth that I am doing personally gets reflected in my business, and vice versa. I get called to do, like you mentioned, teaching. Like, I'm doing this course, I'm doing this challenge. Like, I get called to do this work that is truly ascension work for me as I hold space. So I really see my business as a spiritual practice, and my spiritual practice kind of as my business. I think like there's like one the same. And so, I couldn't think of a time that I would ever create a business, or I don't know, any sort of business work that wasn't tied into spirituality, that wasn't tied into intuition, that wasn't tied into alignment. And I think that that's just like, they're all ingrained together. That's how I think of, spiritual and ambitious. It's all kind of tied together.
I love that. I also feel like, and I didn't know this ahead of time, but I have learned so much and have grown so much spiritually through my business. And I feel like when you have your own business, it is such a wonderful mechanism to catapult your spiritual growth. I didn't have any kind of warning sign like, warning, this will give you all these challenges to grow spiritually. But it's been really amazing. So I want to talk about your free gift before we go. You've got an abundance power duo, which I think is so needed for spiritual and ambitious people. So you can go to EmilyAarons.com. I'm going to link to it in the show notes, but can you tell us a little bit about this free gift?
Yeah, I love this gift. It also came to me intuitively. Spoiler alert. They're two of my favorite and most potent meditations. These are not like, you get kind of swindled into like a freebie and it's like kind of crappy. These are like really incredible energy healings that clear your blocks and get you into that aligned state. And one of them was actually delivered live in my Mastery and Ascension membership. So it was taken right from the portal and brought to you. So you don't even have to pay for the membership. You get this one meditation as a free gift. And there's a beautiful duo. So I encourage people to listen to them first separately. You'll get them one at a time and then listen to them together. And like literally one after the other, and notice what happens. And this is what happened to me. This coursework, like I've been mentioning, that kind of came from doing these two meditations, one after the other. So I wouldn't be surprised if you reached out to me after doing them to say, wow, this huge energy just shifted. I've gotten myself into alignment and I've got total clarity on this next big move. And all of a sudden, these new people are coming out of the woodwork and finding me and saying yes. They're really, really powerful. And they're two of my favorite meditations. That was a long-winded response to what they are.
I like long-winded responses. I'm going to check that out too. So you can go to EmilyAarons.com to get this. I will link to this in the show notes. And thank you so much, Emily, for being on this podcast. I will link Emily's everything in the show notes so you can find her, work with her, check her out. And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Whitney. It's really nice to have these like down-to-earth conversations and really just share from a really deeply authentic place. It's just really nice.
I definitely agree. Thank you. All right, that's been another episode of the Spiritual and Ambitious podcast, but I'll be coming at you next week with a brand new one. But until then, here's to staying spiritual and ambitious. Thanks so much for listening to this episode. And if you loved it, would you please share it with a friend? I would also love your review and a reminder to subscribe so you never miss an episode. You can find me at messengerofspirit.com, and you can take the 4 Intuitive Languages quiz and find show notes there too. If you want to connect on YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, you can find me at Messenger of Spirit. If you want to continue the conversation, join my free Facebook group at messengerofspirit.com/group. I'll meet you right here next week. Here's to staying spiritual and ambitious.
This podcast is part of the Sound Advice FM network. Sound Advice FM. Women's voices amplified.